Mr. Mays, I'll start with you. It's now been about a day. I mean, how are you feeling? How are you processing the verdict from yesterday?
You know, I feel like some accountability, you know, has been placed. You know, accountability is something that was needed. My son's name was cleared. You know, a lot of money was spent trying to shame his name over the course of 5 years. That's been cleared up. You know, his last testimony, his last verbal testimony of his intentions of advocating for, you know, police training, you know, and a better way of policing, you know, not this radical ideal of anarchy and crime, you know, was allowed to be played, you know, as of recently. You know, it's not a total resolve, you know, because you know, they never got the shooter, you know, but the fact that they abandoned my son, you know, and to show the system, the way that the system failed, you know, is significant, and a light was shown on that. And that's significant because in the communities I grew up in California, and some other communities that I have family members in other cities and states across the nation, they have also experienced system failure in their emergency response system, and that's been plaguing my community, you know, for generations. So here it's plagued the community in Seattle, which my son happened to suffer from it. So to shine a light on that is very important. So, you know, that and the accountability is very significant and important. It means a lot to me, but I don't feel a total resolve.
And he said he came here to be part of that racial justice movement. One of the things that was alleged in the lawsuit was CHOP was not what he thought he was coming to. He wanted to come here with righteous motives and went into a dangerous place. Was that vindicated? And how did that play out at the trial?
It got muddied up at the trial. It got muddied up at the trial, so it became, you know, almost like some muddy waters. So it's kind of hard for me to navigate that, you know, verbally, because it's not within my scope to, you know.
But when he came to Seattle, he said he was here for racial justice.
Right. He came with the intentions of supporting and advocating for something better in a realm that he thought was familiar with the life that he'd been raised in. You know, because as my son, he's been raised in festivals, street food night markets, farmer markets, block parties, you know, these kind of things that were, you know, marketed online and in, you know, major news outlets, you know, like CNN and stuff like that. So he had that interpretation as to what was happening here. And when he got here, you know, it was clearly something entirely different.
Mr. O'Shea, we'll ask you, I mean, there was such a track record of problems in CHOP prior to the death of Antonio Mays Jr. How did that play into this? The city knew the dangerous conditions that were up there.
No, what I can tell you is that there was a protocol in place, and the protocol was not followed. The city set up a protocol. They breached their own protocol, and this essentially led to the death of young Antonio Mays Jr. And there's still yet to be an acceptance of responsibility. And this is what we want first and foremost, is the city needs to come forward and accept responsibility for what they did or what they didn't do. They made the system, they set up the system wasn't working, accept it, own it, be responsible.
Were there layers of failure here? One, by allowing CHOP, and two, by not following what plans had been made with the CHOP leadership?
There were so many layers of failure here. I mean, it was, in my opinion, gross mismanagement of city resources. I mean, this was a failure of the city of Seattle. This should have never happened. It was predictable. It was preventable. It should have never happened.
Obviously, this is a civil verdict. What are your thoughts on the criminal side of this and the fact that nobody has been charged with killing Antonio Mays Jr.?
Well, this is very troubling, especially the fact that the crime scene where young Antonio was shot was completely polluted. I mean, it was almost 5 hours went by before the crime scene was even taped off, which is absurd. I mean, this was a murder investigation. I don't know how they're going to find people. I don't know how they're going to conduct the criminal investigation at this point. Seems like it was a botched criminal investigation. This came out in the trial. There was testimony that was made that said that it took so long before they went there and secured the crime scene. I mean, this was a murder investigation. This is a young man, a child who lost his life, a 6-year-old child who came up here to Seattle to be part of a movement, to be part of his movement, his civil rights movement of his generation. You know, similar to Martin Luther King Jr., when he was 15 years old, he was talking about segregation. He gave a speech and he was involved in segregation. That was his movement, as his generation. Well, this was young Antonio Mays Jr.'s generation, and his movement was making sure that police had more education. He wasn't a troublemaker. He didn't come up here to create chaos or violence. He came up here for positive change, to exercise his First Amendment rights, to came up here to lawfully voice what he felt was an injustice. And he wasn't kept safe, he was abandoned, and the city needs to step up first and foremost and accept responsibility for their inaction.
How did statements, Mr. O'Shan, from city leadership at that time play into this case? Because we had former Mayor Durkin, who, the infamous words in Seattle, Summer of Love. We had then Councilmember Sawant, who celebrated the creation of the CHOP zone. How did that play into this liability here for the city?
Well, what we were primarily focused on in this case and this verdict was the system failure, the fact that there was a delay in the treatment, but obviously all the things that led up to this created this situation. I mean, it was the foundation was laid to essentially be failure. I mean, I feel bad also for the police officers, for the firefighters, for the first responders that couldn't do their job. They couldn't do their job. Antonio Mays Jr. was essentially shot in front of a police precinct. There was a fire department essentially around the corner from where he was shot. He didn't get the care that he needed in those minutes, in those moments, in those seconds before he passed. Those were precious moments, precious seconds. And if he would have been taken care of timely, he may have still been here today. And that's really hurtful, and that's painful. It's painful for me to watch as a human being, as an attorney, to see my client, the father, suffer like he has. I mean, I care about this man.
Yeah. And Mr. Mays, we'll give you the last word here. I mean, what is your message to people who watch this, who reflect back on CHOP here in Seattle and the tragic death of your son? What do you want to come from this?
What I would like to come from this is, one, exactly what my son advocated for, more training, and not just for the police, but the entire emergency response system, because there was a 911 call that was mishandled. From the very beginning, I'm used to 911 saying, I'm gonna stay on the phone with you until help arrives. This 911 caller, okay, I hear you got a lot going on over there, I'm gonna call you, I'm gonna let you go now. They didn't tell her where to go. They didn't make sure that she got help. She said, hey, I got somebody that needs help. I'm in the car with him. They didn't direct traffic for her or anything. So, an awareness to the whole system, because as Evan said here, the police weren't allowed to do their job. The fire department paramedics weren't able to do their job. There was so many issues with the whole emergency response system, If our community members could be more aware, I don't want to come down too harsh, on any of these first responders, because there's a lot of them that will jump in the line of fire for you. You look at the firemen in 9/11, man, your heart goes out to those families. You have some of those same firemen in Seattle and in every other city. Unfortunately, they're not all like that, but for the ones that are like that, goodness gracious. Those are the ones that you just, you can't express enough gratitude for them. But, to have an awareness for our emergency response system and encourage the whole system to have more unison, to have more training, to strive to continue to improve. That's something that should never never stop evolving. Unfortunately, some of these emergency response systems have stopped evolving. They need to continue to evolve as technology continues to evolve and better that system along the way.
And to never allow another situation like CHOP to happen.
Never allow another situation like CHOP to happen, and hold accountable those who abandon somebody in need, blatantly at that. Accountability needs to be had along the way.